What would you do if the person you trusted most was hiding a secret that could shatter your world? I thought I knew my husband, David. 13 years of marriage, 2 kids, and a life built on quiet moments coffee in the morning, late night talks about our dreams, his hand always finding mine in the dark. But that day, standing in the sterile chill of St. Mary's Hospital, I learned that love can hide truths too heavy to bear. It started with a phone call. David had been feeling off for weeks, tired, pale, a cough that lingered like an unwelcome guest. I chalked it up to stress. He was a high school teacher, always grading papers late into the night, always giving too much of himself. But when he collapsed in the middle of a lesson, the doctors ran tests. Leukemia, they said. Aggressive. He was admitted immediately, and I was left reeling, trying to hold our family together while the world tilted beneath my feet. That morning, I left the kids with my sister and drove to the hospital. The air was thick with the promise of rain, and my heart was a knot of worry. David had been in treatment for 3 weeks, his body weakening, but his spirit stubborn as ever. He'd smile through the pain, squeeze my hand, and tell me we'd get through this. I believed him. I had to. The hospital was a maze of white walls and beeping machines. I clutched a bouquet of daisies as favorite and made my way to the oncology ward. Room 412. I was almost there when I heard voices around the corner, low and urgent. Something made me stop. Maybe it was the tone, sharp and secretive, or maybe it was the way my name Clara slipped into the conversation like a blade. I pressed myself against the wall, the daisies trembling in my hands. The voices belonged to 2 people, a woman, her words clipped and professional, and a man whose voice I knew as well as my own. David. My David. But what he said next froze the blood in my veins. She can't know. Dr. Ellis, he whispered. Clara thinks it's leukemia. If she finds out the truth, it'll destroy her. I stopped breathing. The hallway seemed to narrow, the walls closing in. Leukemia wasn't the truth? What was he hiding? My mind raced poison, an overdose, something he'd done to himself. I wanted to storm into his room, demand answers, but my feet were rooted to the floor. Dr. Ellis's voice cut through my panic. We can't keep this up forever, David. The experimental treatment is risky, and if it fails, it won't fail, he snapped, his voice harder than I'd ever heard. I've come too far. She'll never forgive me, but I'm doing this for her, for the kids. I slid down the wall, the daisies scattering across the floor. My husband was lying to me, not just a small lie, but something monumental, something that could unravel everything we'd built. I wanted to scream, to cry, but all I could do was listen as their voices faded and the door to his room clicked shut. I don't know how long I sat there, piecing together fragments of a life I thought I understood. When I finally stood, my legs shook, but I forced myself to walk into room 412. David was propped up in bed, his face gaunt, but his eyes bright when he saw me. Clara, he said, reaching for my hand. You brought daisies. I forced a smile, my heart hammering. Of course, I said, setting the remaining flowers on the table. I wanted to confront him, to demand the truth, but his frailty stopped me. He looked so small, so vulnerable. Instead, I sat beside him, holding his hand, while my mind churned with questions. What was he protecting me from? And why did it feel like betrayal? The next few days were a blur. I went through the motions cooking for the kids, visiting David, smiling when he joked about getting back to teaching. But every night, I lay awake, replaying those words in the hall. I started noticing things I hadn't before. The way Dr. Ellis avoided my eyes during rounds. The locked drawer in David's study at home, which I'd never thought to question. The way he'd been distant even before the diagnosis, always working late, always distracted. I needed answers. So, one evening, when David was asleep and the hospital was quiet, I slipped into the records room. I wasn't proud of it, but desperation makes you do things you never imagined. I found his file, my hands trembling as I opened it. The words blurred together: test results, treatment plans, but one phrase stood out: non-biological origin. His condition wasn't leukemia. It was something else, something the doctors couldn't classify. Experimental treatment. High risk. Consent form signed by David alone. I was about to close the file when a hand touched my shoulder. I gasped, spinning around to face a young nurse, her badge reading Lila. She looked nervous, her eyes darting to the door. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "But I heard you in the hall the other day. I know you heard him." "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "I'm nobody," she said quickly. "But I've seen things. Your husband, he's not just sick. He volunteered for something. A trial. It's not in the records, not officially. They're testing something new, something dangerous. He didn't want you to know because he thought it'd break you." My knees buckled. Why would he do this? Lila hesitated, then leaned closer. "He said it was for you. For your future. The trial, it's not just about curing him. It's about something bigger. I don't know all the details, but I heard him talking to Dr. Ellis about a breakthrough. Something that could change medicine forever." I stared at her, my mind reeling. A breakthrough? At the cost of his life? I thanked Lila and stumbled out of the records room, my heart a storm of anger and love and fear. When I saw David the next day, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I sat by his bed, took his hand, and said, "Tell me the truth, David. What are you doing to yourself?" His face crumpled. For the first time in weeks, he looked truly afraid. "Clara," he whispered, "I didn't want you to find out like this." He told me everything. The trial wasn't just for him. It was a radical gene therapy, untested on humans until now. If it worked, it could cure not just his condition, but countless others. He'd volunteered because he believed in it, because he wanted to leave a legacy for our kids, for me. But the risks were enormous. The therapy could kill him faster than the disease. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, tears streaming down my face. "Because I knew you'd try to stop me," he said. "And I couldn't let you. I love you too much to let you carry this." I wanted to be angry, to hate him for keeping me in the dark. But as I looked at Himmy David, the man who'd given me everything, I saw the weight he'd carried alone. He wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for a future he might never see. We spent the next weeks together, no more secrets. The trial was grueling, and there were days when I thought I'd lose him. But he held on, and so did I. Lila became an unexpected ally, slipping me updates when the doctors wouldn't. And one day, a miracle, the therapy worked. David's condition stabilized. The doctors called it a breakthrough, just as he'd hoped. But the real miracle was us. We rebuilt our trust, piece by piece, through honest conversations and shared tears. I learned that love isn't just about holding hands in the dark, it's about facing the truth, no matter how terrifying. David's sacrifice wasn't just for science. It was for me, for our kids, for a world he believed could be better. As I sit here now, watching him play with our children in the backyard, I know we're not out of the woods. The therapy is still experimental, the future uncertain. But we face it together. No secrets, no lies. And that's enough, because sometimes the coldest truths lead to the warmest redemption.